We have everybody here. Mr. Gutman, the mobility update that you've been trying to do for months, you are on.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Gutman. I'm co-chair of the Mobility Network team, and I'll be presenting with Nancy Darga, also the co-chair of Mobility. And tonight, Nancy and I are going to walk through our updated Mobility Network study, which we first presented to Council about 16 months ago. And for the sake of efficiency, if it is possible to hold your questions to the end, that'd be very helpful.
They will.
So I'm going to spend a few minutes on this slide that you're looking up right here, because the information that follows does require kind of a setup. So let me start, if I could, with a playful insight, compliments of Anna Mary Lee-Volek, that the map you see here, it makes you think of Northville as a quilt. It's warm and colorful. It's been passed down from generation to generation. It's precious to all of us, and we all have a piece of it. It's our Northville. But it's in need of some major patchwork. As you'll notice from the circles on the map, there's a lot to be done with our old city. Some of this work is happening right now, and some will be later with the new development. But all of these actions must work together for the good of everyone. As you can see, the study tried to cover a good portion of the city's street network, and that's not easy to convey in just a few minutes. We were up here before. Our study was long and complicated then, but taken piece by piece, though, it's not as bad. So to help you, we're going to break this presentation up into two sections. First, I'm going to present the high-level concepts of the study, some of our governing tools. Then Nancy will jump up and get into the detail of our recommendations. So she has the hard part. Finally, we will conclude with an ask of City Council on how to go forward. So that's something for you guys to look forward to. And so now I'm going to do a brief circle around this map so you're familiar with the scope of our study, and then we can move on and you can watch the little pointer go. Let's start at the bottom and go clockwise around the ring. We have the 7-mile corridor, everything labeled S1. It's a huge part of our effort to better integrate the city of Northville with future neighborhoods, with Hines Drive and the park. You'll notice there's 2 roundabout recommendations and the southern access road into the Downs. We're going to talk more about that later. We then go up Center Street, S5, which in the past has been a thoroughfare with high volumes, higher speeds, often heavily congested. On this segment, we want to create an environment that is more comfortable to live with through the use of traffic calming techniques like bump outs, parallel parking, lowering the speed limit. Then we'll swing to the top of the map, and that's S6. And discuss very important issues, which you're very familiar with now, within the core blocks of the city, such as whether the main intersection downtown can safely stay closed and how it affects the whole network. As part of the core analysis, Katy Street, both east and west of Center, were evaluated for traffic capacity, parking, and pedestrian safety. Next, if you follow Katy going east and you complete the connection with the Main Street bend, we need to do that in a way that's effective and safe for getting across, as you might need to do on a future Riverwalk trail. We then come down to the Beale Street Bridge and recommend changes there to prevent this from becoming a thoroughfare for new traffic pushing into the neighborhood. Finally, we work down River Street and propose, quote, a real road like was done in that long ago study called Main Street 78 that included bump outs, parallel parking spaces, and good walkway on both sides. And that brings us back to the 7-mile corridor where you can see action is needed for safer crossing to Hines Park and for getting to our future farmers market. Okay, let's move ahead. Slide time will drop significantly from this point. Let's start with some background information. For those of you who may need a quick review, these are the important points. I'm going to kind of hit them all. New development and growth are captivating opportunities for the city, but they will bring safety, traffic, and disruption concerns. The Mobility Network team was formed out of members of the Sustainability team, which I'm a chair, and the River Restoration Task Force, of which Nancy's a chair. We identified challenges to having safe, walkable streets, to getting effective and balanced traffic flow, and making fluid connections between all our neighborhoods. We considered mobility and connectivity in total, working on a process to home in on sites that warranted urgent attention. Our conclusions focus on 5 critical and specific action areas important to the experience of Northville as the future unfolds. So this next slide I'll do quickly. I know it's very busy, but we've already gone around the ring on the first slide. I know this is detailed, but it is essentially the same slide from our presentation of November of 2021. Same text, same 5 actions of top concern, the old map, called a reminder slide. The tough point is we were here with you over a year ago, and we're back, and you see the headline that says, still 1 year later. Not a lot of movement. It's the same basic list. But since then, we've done a great deal of new analysis with the hope that this bolsters our case for the needed actions. Moving on, this is a complicated slide. So I'll try to get through it as simply as possible. The headline on the bottom says, the mobility team verified traffic concerns. As you can see, this slide dives deep into traffic engineering, but it's in the deck because it provides the statistical analysis for, quote, why we need to make changes in our roads. Our position is Northville has a traffic problem, both pre-COVID and post-COVID. Very simply, the big chart with the colors and the grade letters tell you where the problems are. But just for credibility, to let you know what this team did, the reference books we utilize for process are shown in the upper left. The Traffic Engineering Handbook and the Highway Capacity Manual are longtime Bibles for conducting traffic studies. We also made use of some very sophisticated software for the traffic analysis. We made every effort to analyze our streets as paid professionals would do so. So we analyzed 34 street locations with comparisons to the Fleece and Vandenbrink traffic impact study, which was done in the 2021-22 timeframe. As you can see from the 2 columns labeled F and V and me is mobility, we attempted to mirror their study parameters. The colored boxes on the chart show the level of service for each intersection graded from A to F. And that ranks the delay suffered by drivers on the road. The reds are the E's and F's, which are fails. And as you can see, there are more than just a few. The important point here is when comparing our traffic analysis to the traffic impact study, there were no substantive differences. We matched up line by line. The difference is how the results were interpreted and the resulting narrative. The study reported that the traffic doesn't require major correction in Northville, that we do not have substantial traffic problems. So we went to the blue chart on the left. And that is the work we did beyond matching up to the traffic impact study. It validates the analysis of the big chart, and it tells us that fails do matter. They are traffic issues. We did a statistically valid simulation and found that the wait time at, say, the Katy Center intersection, for example, resulted in repeated fails. See how the bars go up well above the red lines. The wait times were way too long, and that's something that you need to address across the board with the other fails in this analysis. And Nancy will address the most urgent areas. So with that, you now see all the grimble that we got into. What you see here are projects that have come into our purview since our last study. We're now dealing with several new items: the Foundry Flats development, the Downs, the pedestrian and traffic plan, and the downtown pedestrian plan. All these are new things to consider impacting our analysis. So very quickly, let me give you a primer on the worksheet shown in the center, which will be helpful when Nancy presents. This is a snippet of our action sites list. Let's go through the symbols. The check marks in the boxes tell us who the lead is or who our partner is for each location, whether it's F&V, the city, or Wayne County. Looking at the key that's in the top right, a box in yellow means special attention required. Good hands indicate urgent care is needed for pedestrian safety. And the civil engineer hard hat guy means an engineering study is required. We did this for the 27 street locations. Okay, that's your lesson for today. Here is our updated problem statement. Let me introduce it. The Mobility Network team applauds the city's progress toward our stated goals of safe, walkable streets and having effective and balanced traffic flow and fluid connections around the city. We return to you now to emphasize urgent needs that remain outstanding and to ask that they be addressed. Some of these needs are within the scope and capability of consultants that are already on board. We are pleased to reinforce this work. Other unaddressed action sites include those we consider to be very beneficial, but also the most difficult and costly to implement. Linkage to Foundry Flask, the Downs, daylighting the river, Farmers Market, and additional projects throughout the city also bring challenging timing pressures. Further engineering work is required here to address 5 of our most urgent needs, and we're going to recap those for you at the end. So the bottom headline here says, best livable volume as a Northville goal. This is a three slide set. Each one builds on the other, leading to an important conclusion and a major recommendation. So hang with me on these slides. First, if you're reading the text, future volume is not something you measure, it's something you choose. And we ask 2 questions. What volume of traffic does Northville want in the future? And what blend of either through traffic or destination traffic do we want? Depending on the design of your streets, you can adjust how much volume goes where. For example, by changing the speed limit, using bump outs, using traffic calming techniques, that kind of stuff. This map is a regional view. The check marks are how people get to Northville and or through Northville. We want to have some control over how much of that volume comes through the middle of Northville. The second slide is a city view. The headline, managing speed and volume, calming and dispersion. Within town, good traffic distribution requires multiple choices to achieve best livable volume. So you have to manage your traffic flows to do that. Our traffic network uses these 3 check marks, these 3 main ways to get around downtown. The last one is in the future. It's how we get through town. It's not a straightforward route because we have changed the traffic flow. You know this from experience, you know this from tonight, and you can see this with the pink highlighted streets. That's how we get around town today. And that leads us into the last point, which is completing connectivity disperses volume, which strongly aids safety and comfort. And we want to disperse traffic in a way that promotes a fairly shared burden of vehicles throughout our neighborhoods. We heard all about that tonight. We don't want an unbalanced distribution through what has been an unplanned traffic dispersal. Moving on. Okay, this is the final chapter. Completing connectivity for best mobility through town. Our goal is repeated up top. Consistent with these goals, we recommend the following. Open Center Street and implement traffic calming to slow things down and allow for event closures. Open Main Street and go with either event closures or seasonal closures. And finally, importantly, build the southern connection at Hines 7 Mile and what will be New Griswold with the Downs and beyond. If we don't find a way out of that southern part of the Downs, you are essentially creating one big cul-de-sac at the south end, and that's not going to help. Therefore, we conclude, as the purple says, this reestablishes the north-south and east-west connections through the business district. And with the building of the new southern link, we restore the city grid. This ensures the most effective connectivity through time. Very quickly, bicycles depend on shared lanes and wide walks. I'm not Jeremy. I only do 4,000 to 5,000 miles a year as a cyclist. But mobility is not just about cars. So we looked at the interconnection with bicycles. This slide shows recommendations for accommodating bikes and bike lanes within a city. And these are great, but I'm not going to go into the detail because what's important is that given the constraints of our existing street grid, we can't accommodate full bike lanes that are well connected through town. Therefore, we're recommending that we handle bike travel using shared lanes. That is, having cars and bikes safely share the traffic lanes, and where possible, planning wider sidewalks, which are especially helpful to bikers who aren't comfortable with cars. Simple as that. Finally, taming cars with bump outs and parallel parking. This is also a nod to our past city efforts. We have a great history in trying to do the right thing, and much of it is related to traffic and safety. You can go all the way back to Main Street 78, and that's a history lesson for another time, but a lot was done. Excellent work was also done on the strategic plan of 2006. And the work continued with 2009 streetscape plan, and finally, the secondary streets design standards of 2016, which the DDA supported. From all this, we received consistent advice for what we're recommending here, which is to slow down traffic by using bump outs and parallel parking, was part of that. It's not a new idea. You saw it in all these reports, but it is an effective one. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Nancy for a closer look at our action site recommendations.
Let's get down to the street level on these 5 action sites, which are specific intersections and roadways affecting the overall street network of the city. This network impacts traffic flow, connectivity to regional tributaries, roads, pathways, and pedestrian access. Action on these sites need to take planned and be planned for, an implementation plan created that considers the new developments that are about to take place. This is the same map that Dave walked you through, but what I want to do is stress once again that the original plan, we spent months trying to identify where are the action sites that impact either a gridlock or a connectivity in the city. We identified these 5 in the original plan. When we reassessed that in the updated plan, we came to the same conclusions. These 5 actually determine the temperature of the traffic flow throughout the city. South Center, the Old Core, the Business District, River Street, Doheny Safe School Passageway, we will discuss that more in detail later, and the Beck Road Corridor Improvement Project, which we will not discuss because it's being handled from by a different regional group. Improvement to these action sites will have the biggest impact on improving disbursement of traffic, building connections, and providing safe crossings for pedestrians and bikes. We're starting with the 7-mile corridor because honestly, if you're really going to look at what is a major influence on how traffic comes in and gets distributed in town, you have to take in the 7-mile. It's a crucial road for the distribution and the consistent flow of traffic. So in the study, one of the big concerns was the intersection of 7-mile with the railroad tracks into town. I'm happy to report that the township is already addressing this issue through contracting engineering services of OHM and applying for a grant, which they were just recently awarded, to provide pedestrian crossing and an updated railroad gate system at the 7-mile Main Street intersection. On Main Street, another big concern was the 7-mile left turn lane, and this is being paid for and addressed in the DPAC agreement. The River Street, the 7-mile, and the pedestrian crossing into what will be the future farmers market is also being addressed in the Downs PDAC agreement with an island refuge and a hawk light. But we've got 2 yellow hands. That's a warning, warning, warning. Bill Robinson, oh, excuse me. 7-mile Sheldon Center is, we are proposing a roundabout. This has received Wayne County approval. The engineering cost has been worked into part of the Downs DPAC agreement. The city was just awarded a carbon reduction grant of $1.5 million from SIMCOG. The River Task Force just submitted 2 congressional direct spending grants to Stabenow and Peters for $800,000 and a community support fund grant to Congressman Debbie Dingell for $800,000. This specifically for construction. If those grants don't come forward, OHM will be proceeded with Mike Dominy to apply for safety funds for construction. What I'm saying is we are starting to move forward on implementing ways to handle the anticipated increase in traffic into town. The 7 Mile Wing Street intersection, however, is an area that needs to have some engineering analysis, as the single lane layout of that does not lend itself for safe turning or to merge for merging traffic. So that is should have a construction hat to it. The Heinz New Griswold southern entry to the Downs development is definitely recommended by the Mobility Task Force. As Dave so strongly pointed out, if we don't deal with some kind of escape valve into and out of that major development, we are going to forcibly push all the traffic onto Center Street, exacerbating a street that's already overloaded. The developer has agreed to build a stub as part of its preliminary site plan. It will be up to us to work with Wayne County to find a funding strategy for this. And the county is very much aware of our proposal. Now, we all wish for good things to happen in a timely manner, but since this is a long-term project, we had to look at the actual existing conditions of what we call the dangerous Y at where 7 Mile comes into Heinz Drive. We are suggesting that we upgrade the shoulder of the 7 Mile roadway to serve bikes going to Heinz Parkway and the News Farmers Market. We are also suggesting a shared trail, that's the green line, that will go all along 7 Mile into the Parkway. And we have already met with the Wayne County Parks to discuss their preferred route. And we do know that LHM started before Pat Sullivan left on laying out a bikeway pathway through a TAP grant. Thank you. Heinz roundabout. Ultimately, we feel that this is the best solution of trying to handle not only the traffic, giving access to the Downs and keeping it off Center Street, but the distribution of traffic onto 7 Mile in a safe manner. It will take some of the collisions that we have going on at that Y, and it will also minimize or reduce the stacking time on that. Although some people say this is a wish item, I'm going to say that as the Downs gets built out, we're going to see how important it is in the future. South Center calming and distribution. South Center, if we like it or not, it's the main drag in, it's the main drag out. It goes to the freeway. It is a major access point and it disperses traffic and it needs to be calmed down. I love the picture, Mr. Demery, that you brought of the stacking cars on Center Street. We do know that with the new Downs development, there will be some escape valves in it. But as we pointed out in that blue bar chart that Dave showed you earlier, it's still a series of fails at each of the intersections. Because of the time it takes or the duration for you to get a break in traffic to come in and out of those intersections. We are going to recommend reducing the traffic speed from 35 to 25. That keeps this road off of Google Maps in Yahoo and recommending it as an alternate route. We are going to suggest bumping out the intersections to calm traffic and provide pedestrians a safe way to get out past parked cars. We also suggest introducing parallel parking along Center Street, which it doesn't have right now, at least from Fairlane going north, where there are painted bike lanes. These bike lanes actually don't go anywhere right now. We are suggesting that the walkway on the east side of the road on the Downs project is widened to 10 feet so that people coming down that Sheldon Road bike path can continue into town. And those are the people that have the strollers and the baby buggies hooked onto their bikes and stuff like that. Otherwise, we are going to the system that Dave mentioned before, an older city, which is that we would have to share the roads. Walkable South Center. This is an illustration. If you look at the section view here, you'll see that OHM actually has a proposal for the roundabout with an island coming into Center Street. And we are suggesting shortening their original proposed island, introducing parallel parking, bumping out the corners that does, and widening the sidewalk to 10 feet. We are also proposing that the boulevard tapers into the road naturally. Once again, reducing the speed to 25, Old Corn business. Now, as you can see, almost every road in downtown business district has something that we have to take care of. There we go. Those are yellow flashing lights again. But let's look at it. Center and Katy offset is one of the major things we're going to have to look at. Griswold to Main North and South, and Katy from Main Street to Center Street. We are really asking for probably some engineering studies on those in addition. Katy Street offset. Just recently, Mike Domini informed us that they put 4 stop signs here. And since then, they have not had an accident. Before that, they frequently did. We also found out from research that the standard acceptable rate for an offset is 6 feet. And as you can see, it is way more than that. So we are recommending that a hard hat is on this intersection, and we actually need engineers to evaluate it. Is the stop signs going to be enough, or do we need to do something more physical at this and dealing with the right of way and the curb line? Old Core Part 2, as you can see, this is a very difficult area because these streets probably go back to the 1800s, and they do not really suit modern vehicle sizes or traffic. But nevertheless, they are part of our patchwork quilt, as Anna Mary Lee pointed out, and they actually are part of the most quaint part of the city. So we had to do a very deep dive analysis of Church Street, Hutton Street, and Mary Alexander. One of the first things we noticed is we needed to improve the non-vehicular connection between Katy and Main up Hutton Street, where the church is, and Jim Long's place is. You almost take your life in your hand trying to walk up there nowadays. We are proposing realigning the curb behind Presbyterian Church to ease child drop-off and to also make it a cleaner and more lined up intersection on Katy and Hutton. But grab your seats, because this was a long and drawn out process for us to evaluate the data on this. We are recommending changing the direction of Mary Alexander Court. The current direction of Mary Alexander Court does not work if the streets are closed or open, because what happens is you need a relief valve off of Center Street going eastward, and not the reversal, which is dumping more street into a street that already has a tremendous failure rate. So we are recommending changing the direction of Mary Alexander Court, and hopefully nobody of you know where I live. Anyways, we are also proposing to make Hutton between Main and Katy one direction and not a two-way traffic. It's got a terrible offset. It's got perpendicular parking. And I've actually been at a meeting where I had to wait like 3 traffic lights to actually back up to have a clearing to get out of that parking. So we are recommending one way on Hutton Street with angle parking going north. Please do not tell Jim Long that I said that. Anyways.
Noted, yes.
We are also recommending that Church Street say one way going southward, which it does today. By accomplishing this, we have now created, much like our human body, a circular system for traffic. So if you do not find a place to park, you can circular around. If you're dropping a kid off at the nursery school, you can circle around. And you can do that in a safe way through this, what we call positive circle of life, basically in Northville. There's Katy Street, Dinking. I'm glad Mrs. Jafer's here. I want to let you know that this is a major concern of us. In fact, the whole Katy Street corridor is a concern for us because we think it is the next economic development corridor for Northville. And as such, we cannot afford to have this 18th century fish hook going into South Main. It's not safe. You got to turn on a blind corner. So we are recommending straightening it out into the curve of Main Street with appropriate traffic lighting, striping, and crosswalks. We are also proposing routing the Riverwalk along the shore and bringing it and crossing it over at the spot too. If you actually stand out there for a while, you'll notice that people stop there naturally to look at the beautiful water wheel and the dam that the mayor just opened. So it actually kind of is a natural stopping point. We also had to address the Doheny Safe School Passage under the railroad. My daughter used to live at Highland Lakes, and it is terrible to get through there. You take your life in your hands. Anyways, what we're proposing there is that we work with Wayne County and SEMCOG, who's offered to assist us in holding a meeting with the railroads and actually come up with a design of a box culvert, another box culvert that goes under the tracks. And there is funding, special funding up right now. The federal government just passed a Connect America grant that deals with railroads, severing times or rivers or highways. And there's also the safe to school times. I should have pointed out, I'm remiss that when we go to straighten Katy Street, it's imperative that we do that before Foundry Flass starts building, because their entrance and exit goes right into that fish hook, actually at the curve of the fish hook where it's blind. So we really need to have a game plan. We can't build it, but we need to have a game plan on it so that future developments can accommodate it. And we have to look at this intersection of Griswold and that's Hutton, correct?
Griswold and Main.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted. And what we're looking at is making improvements there because of the bikeway coming out and stuff that basically is telling us that we can realign the lanes with striping and make this intersection so much safer and better. We can have one through lane going east, one through lane going west, one left turn going north onto Griswold, one left turn going south onto Griswold also. In other words, we have a dedicated place to turn at that intersection. We can have a right turn lane going onto Griswold off of Main. And this will allow, instead of 4 lanes going into 2 lanes, it allows for a gradual integration of the through lanes into the 2 lanes when you proceed on Main Street. And to be honest with you, it is a very cost-efficient way of making a much safer intersection. And it provides a right turn lane for trucking because this is a dedicated truck route for the city. River Street at Bill, we need to redesign River Street. Come on, have anybody been in River Street? The surface of the moon is smoother than River Street. So what I want to say is we need to actually come up with an engineered design, a real design for River Street that takes into account parking on both sides, walkways on both sides. One of the walkways would be in the river park, and the developer has agreed to do so. And also it would have extended bump outs at the intersection so that we could slow down traffic going down Beale Street and it doesn't just peel into Beale Town. We want to provide a shared pathway along River Street in the River Park that also connects to the new farmers market. As mentioned before, the development agreement already has proposed doing safety treatments to a crosswalk and hawk training and a safety island in the middle. In order to slow down traffic traveling B Street, we recommend a bump out at all of the corners of the street and especially at Beale. And we have a blow up there of that there. And we realized that we actually have the right of way to do it. So that made all of us very happy. We recommend that we adopt a secondary street width on a River Street and that it would have 7-foot parking on one side, two 10-foot lanes either way, so it's two-way traffic, and then another 7-foot zone for parking on the other side of the street. This would be the configuration of what we refer to as a secondary street. The other thing is we gave a high priority pedestrian connections from the River Park to a River Street and with entry plazas and kiosks and signs. We are suggesting that the pedestrian bridge coming off of Fairbrook over the river would actually be located to line up with Johnson Street in Beale Town and connect into River Street. Doheny School Passage. All of the families that will be moving in Downs, children will probably be going to Silver Springs Elementary School. As such, it'll be imperative that they find a way to get under that railroad track in a safe manner. So we are suggesting you plan a route under the track that connects to Highland Lakes Development and the Silver Springs Elementary School through the non-motorized project that's currently under contract by the city. In other ways, what we're asking you to do is to make sure that that consultant includes a solution at the Doheny thing, because if they do, it allows us to possibly apply for additional engineering grants and stuff like that. We need to secure support from Wayne County. SEMCOG has already given us support. I guess they got a railroad guru that said he would try to set something up with the railroad. But we have to have a strategy with Wayne County, not only on 7 Mile, on Main Street, and also the Doheny Safe to School route. We need to partner up with the Northville School District to apply for funding because they get the kudu, they get the extra points on the Safe to School grant program. We get the extra point if we go after the federal funding for the Connect America program. We all three have to come up with a plan, and the Wayne County, SEMCOG, and the school district before we meet with the railroad. But this has to be a project that's planned now, and we can't afford to put it off. Even if we don't have the funding, we have to have the plan in place so that we could strategize on how to funding. Last slide. So I want to take this time before we close out the show to thank Mike Dominy. Is he still here?
Here he
Yep,
is.
he is. He's in the back.
Would you wake him up, please?
Yeah.
I want to thank Mike Dominy, who included the mobility team and some preliminary analysis with Felice Vanderbrink, who was hired by the DDA and also the city to look at the pedestrian walk thing. I think the exchange, Mike, you'll agree, was both entertaining and very productive as we exchanged ideas on how to handle both moving traffic, moving cars, moving bikes, and keeping people safe. I want to also thank OHM, who collaborated with the River Task Force in applying for these congressional direct funds. We had to do it in less than 3 days. We had no sleep. And I learned that engineers do not do well when you call them at 11 o'clock at night because you want to change something in the grant agreement. But they were very kind with me, and we did get it in. And I want to thank the mayor for pressing our elected officials to give us our letters of support. I point this out at this time because I want the city to understand, the residents of the city, what incredible things we can pull off when we work together. And that's the point of my number one thing is we need to continue to collaborate. The task force are not experts, but we're sure in the hell good at getting things done. So collaboration is a key factor in our being successful in finding funds and coming up with the best practical solutions and to get the public buy-in. I suggest very strongly that we set up a meeting with Wayne County once we get some buy-in from the city and Felice Vanderbeek to say to Wayne County to get their understanding of what they'll accept. We know they'll accept the roundabout at Center and a 7 Mile and Sheldon. They're a little iffy on the roundabout at 7 and Hines. And they just nod their head when we mentioned the Doheny Safe School Route and the straightening Katy Street. So I think if we had a very reasonable proposal on what we want to do on Wayne County roads, we don't go in there asking them for money because that's what they're really scared of. We go in there and say, we want to develop a strategy for finding the funding for these roads. I think that they'll be very amiable. They'll work with us. And then we have a game plan. We have everybody in the room saying, all right, this is where we're going to point the boat. This is the direction we're going to go. The next thing is develop a funding strategy to implement these projects. That will not happen overnight. But as soon as we find out, like this new money that came available for railroads, that's new money. But if we have our plans in place, we're at the trough before everybody else. And that's how you get some of this money, is because we have a plan, we have a cost estimate, we have a preliminary engineering thing. We asked the city in your capital improvement plan for the 6 years is that we actually seriously look at what it would take to engineer or to lay out these ideas on it. And we welcome, and we, in our plan, if you notice all the hard acts, those are the things we need professional engineering services on. So in closing, we need a mobility strategy with the county. We need buy-in with the school district, and we need a fundraising strategy. That's ultimately the next steps for the mobility plan. I want to thank you profusely for allowing us to present this to you. I want you to know that all of this is possible because you were open to it. And I really respect you for doing that to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.